Assalamualaikum and hi. Today I will present about our case, which is a case of bullying that was tried in the High Court. As we know, the High Court sees a high position in the hierarchy in the court. So before I start, this is an explanation about High Court. The establishment of the High Court of Kuala Lumpur on 1st January 1948 was important in the development of Malaysia's judicial system. This event marked the formal creation of a court that held jurisdictions over Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia. As the High Court, it occupies an important decisions in important positions in the hierarchy of the Malaysia judiciary, with the power of preside over various civil and criminal cases. The purpose of the High Court is to provide a platform for the fair resolutions of the legal conflicts, protect the rights of its citizens, and uphold the basic principles of justice and principle of justice of the law. The High Court is governed by law, such as Civil Law Act 1956, the Law Reform, which is Marriage and Divorce Act 1976, the High Court Rules and the Rules of Court, which is 2012. These laws outline the powers given to the High Court. So we move to the next slide, which is constitutions. The Law Reform Marriage and Divorce Act 1976 is an important piece of legislation that governs matters related to marriage and divorce in Malaysia. An important aspect of this act is that it gives the High Court jurisdictions over issues related to marriage and divorce. In particular, Sections 103 of the Law Reform Marriage and Divorce Act 1976 give courts the power to issue injunctions against molestations in various circumstances. And under Sections 102 of the Act, High Court are empowered to take actions during matrimonial proceedings or following the granting of a decree of divorce, judicial separations, and annulment. This means that the courts can intervene to protect individuals from unwanted behavior or harassment by their spouse or former spouse. The provisions allows the High Court to order individuals to refrain from forcing their society against their spouse or ex-spouse and from engaging in any other act of violations. By giving High Court the power to issue such injunctions, Section 103 aims to provide a legal mechanism to protect individuals from harmful or disruptive behavior in the context of marriage and divorce. This provision serves to protect the rights and well-being of individuals involved in matrimonial proceedings by allowing the court to intervene and prevent lewdness or harassment. In summary, Section 103 of the Law Reform, which is Marriage and Divorce Act 1976, plays an important role in empowering the High Court to deal with issues of molestations and harassments in the context of marriage and divorce. This is for protection and welfare of individuals involved in such proceedings.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Aiman Fahmi bin Mahdi and my matters number is 073170 and I am from the Bachelor of Public Relations and Media Contemporary. Okay, the composition of the case Liow Keng against Tan Si Hai, alias Tan Si Yen, and Anna involve the following key individual. First, the petitioner Liow is Liow Keng and the respondent is Tan Si Hai, alias Tan Si Yen, and Anna, and the judge is Everald Mertier Peters J. These are the primary parties involved in the legal proceeding outlined in the document. The jurisdiction of the case is first, exclusion from the matrimonial home. The court needs to determine whether it has jurisdiction to grant an order preventing the respondent from entering the residence in Bukit Damansara until the hearing of the judicial separation petition is complete. Second is legal precedence. The court refers to cases such as Jayakumari Anapupan Aru Pradasam against Surya Narayanan and Alaki V. Ramanathan to establish its jurisdiction in making an order of exclusion of a spouse from the matrimonial home. Third is application of common law. The court considers common law principle regarding the right of spouses in the household and the power of courts to protect those rights. Fourth is civil law as 1956. Courts may rely on Section 318 of the Civil Law Act 1956 to establish jurisdiction in making orders relating to the household and the right of the parties involved. Fifth is inherent power of the court. The court uses its inherent power to provide relief and make necessary orders to prevent injustice or abuse of the court process, as under Order 92 Rule 4 of the Rule of Courts. The last one is protection of rights. The court's jurisdiction in this case aimed to protect the rights of parties involved in the marriage proceedings, ensuring that individuals can seek legal remedies without undue pressure or intimidation.
Keng, the petitioner, and Tan Si Hai, the respondent, were husband and wife. The respondent works as a nephrologist, so they had to live separately, which were at Bandar Utama and Binjai residence. Then, the petitioner moved out to Bukit Damansara. In April 2023, the petitioner sought judicial separation from the respondent because allegations of adultery and unreasonable behavior of respondent. Through the judicial separation period, the petitioner filed an attachment on 23 pursuant to Section 103 of the Law Reform, Marriage and Divorce, requesting the following orders. First, that the respondent and the co-respondent be prohibited from harassing and threatening or molesting the petitioner until further orders are made. Second, that the respondent be prohibited from bringing, authorizing, or allowing his agents, including the co-respondent, from entering the Bukit Damansara residence. It is because the petitioner experienced a terrible stress and emotional turmoil from the respondent. Firstly, the respondent presents at Bukit Damansara caused the petitioner to live in a state of perpetual harassment and discomfort. Secondly, the petitioner's desire to live in a peaceful life, but the respondent being incorrespondent to the Bukit Damansara resident. Thirdly, the petitioner faced financial coercion as the respondent cancelled her credit cards and refused to contribute the household expenses. The court decided to require an injunction to prevent the respondent from harassing and non-molestation the petitioner until further orders are made. Furthermore, the court allowed the respondent only to enter the Bukit Damansara residence between the hours of 12 noon and 6 p.m. every Saturday. The issues of this case are, firstly, whether the act of the respondent towards his wife accordance with the definition of molestation. The court considered the case of Sheng Lin at Sheng Len Yi and Tan Teng Han and Anil, even though the lack of concrete proof of physical abuse. This choice was based on the wife's concerns and to prioritize her safety. As a result, basic physical abuse is also a molestation behavior that might result in actual violence. Next, issue is whether non-molestation order was warranted. The respondent had taken the co-respondent to the Bukit Damansara property, which caused the petitioner to feel distressed, mentally distressed, and embarrassed. Also, the petitioner had specifically mentioned the co-respondent in the petition of judicial separation. Both respondents had denied the involvement in the dissolution of the parties' marriage. The respondent's action in cancelling the petitioner's additional credit cards and refusing to pay household expenses has created further stress and anxiety for the petitioner. Lastly, the issue is whether this court had jurisdiction to exclude respondent from the Bukit Damansara residence. The petitioner prayed for an order barring the respondent from entering the Bukit Damansara residence until the outcome of the judicial separation petition hearing. But for the sake of fairness, the court permitted the respondent alone enter the Bukit Damansara residence between the hours of 12 noon and 6 p.m. every Saturday.
I will now explain about the section of the parties' arguments of this case. First of all, we have the petitioner's argument. The petitioner argued for the court to grant a non-molestation order to both the respondent and co-respondent. Other than that, the petitioner argued that the order is justified as the respondent had been inflicting a great amount of distress upon her by bringing over the co-respondent at the Bukit Damansara residence, as well as cancelling her complimentary credit card and refusing to contribute to household expenses. The petitioner had also argued for the interpretation of molestation to include any conduct that includes harassment and vexation. The petitioner also pushed for the respondent to be excluded from the Bukit Damansara residence until the disposal of the hearing or at least until the trial had ended. Now moving on to the respondent's argument, the respondent opposes the non-molestation order, calling it as unfair. Respondent also argues that the exclusion order would infringe on his own rights, in which he expresses his desire to host his friends. The court finds that his desire would further complicates the issue on hand. Both respondent and co-respondent denied the allegations of adultery and molestation. They denied the latter's involvement in the breakdown of the marriage. Furthermore, the respondent contends the court decision of the convenience of violence, as they claim it weighed heavily on the petitioner, overly restrictive, and was blown out of proportion. Now, we will further explain more about the holdings of the court. First of all, the court held that a non-molestation order was imposed. The court held that a non-molestation order is reasonable in this case, and the order would restrict the respondent and co-respondent from further molesting the petitioner. Other than that, in terms of exclusion from residence, the non-molestation order will also exclude the respondents and co-respondents from the Bukit Damansara residence. However, respondents may only still visit the residence between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. on Saturdays on the condition that he is alone and by himself. The next holding is that in the terms of interpretation of molestation, the court held the interpretation of the word molestation extends beyond physical violence and includes vexation, harassment, and disturbance, just as the petitioner requested. Other than that, there are also serious questions to be tried. The court decided that there were serious questions to be tried by a learned judge regarding the case. And last but not least, in terms of convenience of balance, the court held that the convenience of balance lies on behalf of the petitioner on the basis that both parties had already been in a state of separation and the respondent had already lived peacefully at the Binjai residence, which is separated from the respondent.
Okay, now, so let us move on to rationale. So the first part of rationale is the court has prioritized the petitioner's protection and fair treatment, interpreting molestation in matrimonial disputes to include any conduct causing annoyance or distress to the petitioner. And further response to that, the respondent's action including bringing the correspondent to the home and financial coercion, significantly distress the petitioner, as what we said just now, warranting a non-molestation order is done under Section 103 of the Law Reform, Marriage and Divorce Act in 1976. And finally, balancing convenience and justice, the court noted that the respondent had another residence and restricted his access to the Bukit Damansara home to certain Saturday hours. This caused and ensured the petitioner stable and harassment free from the respondent, and this caused them to have a more stable environment during the judicial separation for this case. Thank you. So now let's move on to the next presenter.
In this case, the court granted the application by the petitioner wife for a restraining order against the respondent husband. The court's decision was influenced by the acrimonious relationship between their parties, the distress experienced by the petitioner due to the respondent action, and the need to safeguard the petitioner's emotional well-being. The restraining order prohibits the respondent from molesting, harassing, threatening, or interfering with the petitioner, and from bringing any agents to the Bukit Damansara residence except for himself during specific hour on Saturday. This case underscored the court's commitment to protecting individuals from harm and ensuring a fair and just resolution in matrimonial proceedings.